particularly delighted that your very first speaker is my very good friend, Byron Donald. You know him as your own congressman here in Naples. He was born in Brooklyn. He has a BS from Florida State. I first met Byron in 2016 when he was in the Florida State House, and I was going up there dialing for dollars all the time for this university, well, for which he was a tremendous help. He caught the eye. Well, he then ran for Congress and became our congressman here in Florida 19, and then he caught the eye of the president, Donald Trump, and as partly due to that and partly due to his own achievements, he is now the leading candidate to become the next governor of Florida, Republican candidate. He's raised more money than any of the other candidates. He also has the endorsement of President Trump, and we at FGCU really look forward to your becoming our next governor, Byron. He is in the Congress. He's on two very important committees, the Financial Services Committee and the Committee of Oversight and Government Reform, which is the famous James Comey Committee. So you've seen plenty of Byron on TV. And the last thing I will say is one of the things we have in common is we were both very good friends with Charlie Kirk. Over to you, Byron.
Well, first of all, good morning, Turning Point. How you guys doing here at FGCU? It's good to be with you. I'll start. Let's do a couple things. Let's just talk about the world. Let's talk about how politics moves the needle. A little bit about why culture matters, but really, I really just want to take your questions and figure out what you guys want to talk about, what you're interested in, and let's really get into it. I'm 47 years old. I'm an FSU grad. I moved to this state when I was 17. I've lived here 30 years. This is by far the best state in America, but it's not an accident. It's not an accident. The way Florida has been able to progress from when I first got here to where it is right now has been with consistent, common sense, conservative leadership in our state. Governor DeSantis, our current governor, has done a great job in that regard. I mean, when you have to do a lot of the stuff that we see in social media and in politics writ large, where you're battling ideologies, you're battling policies that do not make sense. They might sound good in a talking point, but when you play them out and you walk them out over time, they actually do not answer the call, they do not answer the bell for what is really causing issues in society. That's when common sense has to reign. And when you're battling the media and you're trying to fight for common sense, it's hard. A lot of times you got to stand alone. There's this thing called mob mentality. Mob mentality is real. When people hear a certain thing over and over and they see somebody else clapping for it, people have this inertia to try to clap for it themselves. But what the conservative has to do is to look at history, look at common sense, look at economics, and sometimes if you got to stand alone, you got to stand alone. That's the way it works. I got into politics 16 years ago. And the reason why I got in 16 years ago was because our financial economy was falling apart. Back in 2008, how old were some of you guys? How old were some of you guys in 2008? Good question. 6, 2, 3. Okay, that's cool. So it's all right. That's all right. In 2008, the world's fiscal economy was blowing up. At its core, it started here in the United States. The core reason why it started was because we had major delinquencies in the residential housing market, single-family homes. And we had a bunch of these delinquencies because some stupid politician in the 90s, actually several of them, thought it was a good idea to have no credit quality when it came to actually being able to buy homes. And the idea was, well, if you just changed all the credit underwriting and made it easy for people to have it, then that would solve all of society's ills. What ended up happening was People were in homes that they couldn't afford. And then the other thing that was happening is people started buying 2 and 3 and 4 homes. And at the time, everybody thought that they were a developer. I had guys who owned restaurants who thought that they were developers. Doctors thought they were developers. And so what happened was you had too much real estate that was being held by people who didn't have the cash to pay for it. So they were upside down in their homes. They couldn't make the payments. When they couldn't make the payments, you had too many people who were having to just give the homes back to the bank. When that occurred, it created a systemic crash in the financial markets. At this time, I was working in commercial banking when this started. And then I switched to insurance. And when I was in insurance, we had a client, they were Taiwanese, and for them to stay in our insurance investment, they wanted to make sure that the American economy was sound. So I was the guy with the banking background in the company. I went in and did the research, and I told them, I was like, look, you're gonna be fine in your investment, because not to get too technical, but universal life insurance policies are really warehoused. And there's a firewall between them and the general economy. So they have their own economics that works. But back to the core story. I turned on a Congressional committee. It was House Financial Services. I turned it on and I wanted to watch it because I was trying to finish my research for my company. I wanted to know what the leaders of the day were saying. I wanted to know what their ideas were about the economy and how to fix it. And what I realized very fast is that they had no idea what they were talking about. They were doing these things that I think is kind of consistent in politics all the time. A lot of talking points, a lot of bluster, no real solutions, and that pissed me off. And I decided to get involved in politics. A year later, the Tea Party movement was happening all across the country. And they were advertising them here in Southwest Florida. And I went to one. And I went to one because I was like, well, what's this Tea Party thing about? The media says that it's racist against Barack Obama. I want to find out for myself. So I went and I found out for myself. And what I found were people who cared about the Constitution, they cared about balanced budgets, they cared about making sure that there was sound fiscal policy in the United States, they did not want bank bailouts, and I agreed with them. And that started this journey 16 years ago that brings me to you today. The real moral of it is, if you want to move a society, if you want to win the day in politics, you got to engage. You have to engage, you have to be involved. You have to pay attention, you got to do your research, and then also you got to challenge your own worldviews. No idea how many times where I have an idea of what I think is right. And then I spend my time watching the counter argument because I want to fully understand my position, really understand it, understand what my opponents are saying. My wife will tell you, up until recently, because I really don't have much time to watch TV because it's pretty busy these days, but for a long time, I would watch MSNBC and CNN. I wouldn't even watch Fox. Why would I watch Fox? I agree with them. I agree with you. I want to challenge my views. So for you guys in this room, it's now your turn at stepping into the arena, if that's what you choose to do with your life. But I will tell you as a citizen, whether you choose to run for office, whether you choose to be a political activist, or whether you choose is to have kids, be married, and live the American dream, politics cares about you, whether you care about it or not. There's a saying in the political circle, especially amongst elected members, especially when it comes time to passing budgets. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. I'll tell you a quick story. My first year in the Florida House, this is 2017. First year elected in the Florida House. The speaker comes over the microphone in the chamber and he tells everybody, and I'm paraphrasing, he goes, all right, everybody, so here's what we're going to be doing over the next couple of days. We're going to finish legislative business today, and then we're going to break for a couple of days, and then we'll reconvene on Tuesday. So my roommate, who is also my colleague here in Southwest Florida, Bob Rommel, I look at him, he looks at me, and we say to each other, man, something don't smell right. Why would you make an announcement telling us we're ending business today and then we'll reconvene on Tuesday? We all got the calendar. We all can read that for ourselves. So we said to each other, something's going on. And we're freshmen, but we're like, something's going on, we should stay. Lo and behold, that weekend, they were divvying up the budget. And so we decided to stay in Tallahassee, not go home, and do the hard work representing your community. We were going door to door on a Saturday afternoon in the Capitol trying to find the budget chairman, the appropriations chairman, that's what they called him at the time. We're trying to find the appropriations chairman because the appropriations chairman, that's the guy that's actually going to sign off on what gets in the budget and what doesn't. Okay? So we were like, okay, let's figure this thing out. We go door to door, we finally track him down. He goes, what do you need? I go, here's what we need in the budget for Southwest Florida. He looks at it, he says, I'll give you these two, but I'm not giving you the third. And it got into the budget. You'll be like, well, Byron, what does that even matter? It matters because if you're going to engage in politics, the first thing is you got to show up to win. If you're not willing to show up, it doesn't even matter. You got to be present, you gotta show up, you got to engage. You got to talk to the people around you. You got to share these ideas. You got to challenge your worldview. That's the very essence of politics in the modern era. That's the essence. On Capitol Hill, yeah, it's a mess. A lot of the issues that are frustrating Americans today, especially young Americans, the reason why they don't change is because of the United States Senate. In the House of Representatives, we pass all kind of bills. We pass them all the time. We send it to the Senate, and in the Senate, it dies. And it dies for one very important reason. It dies because the Senate can't clear their filibuster. The filibuster, as we know it today, was actually brought into being around 1915, 1917. And at the time, the Senate decided that there was going to be 67 votes to clear the filibuster. That's what they decided they wanted to do, right? So here's what happened. In 1975, they changed the filibuster. And the reason why they changed it from a 67 vote threshold to a 60 vote threshold, which is what it is today, is because they couldn't clear filibusters. This is the crazy logic in the United States Senate. If you're going to tackle housing, immigration, energy policy, budget policy, tax policy, today in Washington, you have to get 60 votes in the United States Senate to do it. The current layout of politics is tough. Name me a Democrat that's actually going to reform the budgetary process in Washington. Name me. I'll wait. Name me one that's actually going to codify Donald Trump's border security policies. Name him. I'll wait. Name me one that's actually going to do the hard work of reforming the visa system, ending visas that make no sense, making sure they're focused on the American people, going back to a status where there's a quota system in immigration, which is what the immigration standards in America used to be before 1965, which we need. Find me a Democrat senator that's going to do that. I don't know, maybe John Fetterman today? He seems to be the only one over there operating with common sense. Like, these are the issues that face us today as a society and as a nation. But the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it kind of in that path, and we're going to take your questions, is because Plato did say it best. Those who do not engage in their politics will be ruled by their inferiors. The reason why I decided to get involved in this crazy world of politics, and it's crazy, I got stories for days on this thing, is because I watched members of Congress when I was 29. And the thing that became very clear to me, they had no idea what they were talking about. They didn't work in the world. They hadn't been a part of the world. Their staffs wrote their scripts, and they would read them dutifully off a page. No thought and no logic about what's happening today in America and why Washington has to be reformed. And so I would tell you, this is a never-ending battle. You have to be engaged as a citizen if you're going to save the greatest republic man has ever known. You have to be engaged. That's how this works. And so that's why coming and talking to you guys here at FGCU is really cool. It's really an honor. Southwest Florida, very conservative area. We elect a lot of Republicans here, like virtually everybody, except for maybe the Fort Myers City Council has some elected Democrats, but by and large, Republicans are elected here. This place, Southwest Florida, is very unique compared to the rest of the country. Very unique. It's the best place to live. It's the best congressional district in America. I tell my colleagues that. And you know, they don't like to admit it, but on the side, man, I wish I represented your district. And I say, you know, move down, you may get a shot, who knows? Things happen. But listen, it is my honor to be here. The one message I want to make sure you understand. Number one, You're going to engage in politics, be knowledgeable, know what you're talking about. Number two, the real essence of politics is being able to convince and persuade, not the person directly in front of you, the people who are watching, the people who are listening. The third thing is, most people are apolitical. They know what they want to see. They do want common sense policy. But for the most part, they're living their lives. They're busy, man. They got a girlfriend, they got a boyfriend, they got a wife, they got a husband, they have kids, they have a job or a career or a business. They have personal hobbies, they have things they want to do on the weekend and at night. It's not that they don't care about America, it's not that they don't care about a civil society or functional government. It's just that they have other interests that are far more important to them. So when you engage people, you have to understand where they are, not where you are. That's how you get them to kind of think about the politics before they go vote. And the last thing I will say is, politics is a game of addition. It's a game of addition. When I was a Tea Party activist, I was solely focused on the issues I wanted to champion. So I wasn't really interested in adding people. But now being an elected official, my job is to add people. It's to add people into a coalition where do we all agree 100%? Probably not. But we got to agree enough on the core things that matter to move the nation forward. All right? So I'm going to stop there. It's really a pleasure to be with you guys. Whatever questions you have, I'd love to answer them. And
Hello? There we go. All right. Questions? I was told to come back here first.
I just want to say thank you for being here. I may have a couple of questions. I'll just say one at a time because we came to see you, not me. I believe there was one of them I submitted. I'm going to try to recount it from memory, but apologies if it's not as coordinated as it could be. As Florida, we know job growth is very important. I think it's safe to say that regardless of age, I think we all need a job. But another thing that's really important to the youth especially, but to every Floridian, is environmental protection and keeping Florida beautiful and maintaining what makes Florida so special. So under your leadership, what advice, insight do you have to promote and keep job growth, but also to make sure Florida is not only sustainable, but also beautiful and an example for the rest of the country?
well, it's a great question. The first thing is, a lot of the work is being done right now. When I was in the legislature, we were funding Everglades restoration, Central Everglades restoration plans. The governor has been a true leader in this, making sure that that continues to get funded. We have about, depending on who you talk to, we probably have about 5 to 7 years of work left to do. And so the first commitment is that we're going to finish that work. You just have to get it done. And the reason why is because if you have a healthy, and let's talk specific about South Florida, a healthy Lake Okeechobee actually allows for healthy discharges down the Caloosahatchee River and down the St. Lucie River on the other side of the state. There are about 7 different constituencies of water in South Florida. Southwest Florida is just one of those constituencies. You do have people that live around the lakes. There are some people who do live in the Glades. There are some ranches in the Glades. We have some people down there. You have the people who farm in the Everglades agricultural area. They've been farming there for 90 years now, 80, 90 years roughly. You have the people along the coast, Palm Beach, Broward, Miami, where their fresh water in part comes out of the Everglades system. So, and then you have the people who are north of the lake. These are where some of the stockyards are, other farmers are, some of the cattle ranchers are. There's a lot of constituencies for water. So the number one thing is finish the work. Let's just be focused on getting that done. We're going to be focused on getting that done. Number 2 is going to be the future of water in our state. We're probably going to have 5 to 7 million people come to Florida. But let's be clear on something here. Florida is going to continue to grow. You can't build a wall between us and Georgia. That's unconstitutional. Anybody who jokes about that just saying something to get attention. It's not real. The second thing is, you already see it today. Companies are coming here because we have a low tax state with common sense, where we make sure that law enforcement does its job and does it effectively. That's why Florida continues to win. We're going to continue to do that. So, in light of that, we're going to have to think about what happens if you need fresh water for another 5 to 7 million people. Drinking water. How are we going to deliver that? Part of that is wastewater treatment facilities. We got to make sure those get expanded appropriately. So the water question is a major one. The second major one off of water is power. Somebody might bring up a power question, but just to be brief, if you have 5 million people more, going from 23 million to 28 million, what are we going to do about power in our state? So I believe Florida should embrace small modular reactors, micronuclear reactors. We need another natural gas pipeline. We have to start looking at hydrogen power. Is it really possible and durable and safe? And can we add that to the grid? You see, these are the concrete ideas that we got to do. When you're talking about the water issue, the Everglades, and then building an economy, not just around the Everglades, but around Florida writ large, you got to solve water, you got to solve power, you got to make sure Florida remains beautiful, because that's what people come here in part to take advantage of. And so we're committed to all of those things, but it's not just a talking point. These are things that I've done when I was in the state legislature, things I've supported here at FGCU when we would sponsor appropriations from the federal government to support FGCU and its water school, because Florida's ecology is a part of Florida's future. And if you're going to talk about jobs, yes, companies are going to choose Florida, and that's a good thing, because the number one way to not live in poverty, the number one way to be able to raise a family and buy a house, and I've been able to do that. I'm blessed. I've been able to do that in Florida, right here in Southwest Florida, in Naples. But the way you do that is you have companies come here who have jobs, they want to hire kids, who then grow in their careers. Like I was a kid once too. You know, I'm 47 now. I was 23, 24 when I moved to Naples. I think 24. So this is how you do it. But it starts with water. It starts with our ecology, yes. We're also going to have to answer the power problem.
Hi, Byron. My name's Chloe.
Nice hat.
Thank you so much. So, of course, you know I'm going to start talking about agriculture next. I've lived here for the past 23 years, and clearly we've seen how much expansion has gone on in Southwest Florida for the past couple of years and how devastating it's been for the ranching and farming communities. So my main focus to you is, you focused a lot of your campaign on economic expansion, and I really want to know as governor what steps that you would take to preserve working farmland and support our family farmers and ensure that agriculture remains a very strong pillar of our community, because we've already seen the devastation of the citrus community, and I don't want to see the devastation of the farming and ranching community where I come from.
No, I agree with you. Two things. Number one, we're working with the federal government is key. Some of the trade policies that President Trump has gotten done, the others that he's trying to get done, those are things that we're going to have to continue to work with Washington and with the White House to make sure that Florida farmers in particular are actually being taken care of as we deal with national trade policy. Florida has a lot of specialty crops in Florida. I'm not saying anything you don't already know. We have a lot of specialty crops in Florida. There are protections for our farmers that we need. We don't want to have Mexico dumping produce and dumping other specialty products into America. Why would we let Mexico dump stuff into our country when we have family farms that are doing that here, been doing it for multiple generations, 4, 5, 6 generations? That's critical for the future of our state. It used to be said that there's a 3-legged stool in our economy, ag, construction, and tourism. Ag is a durable part of Florida's economy, and that is going to remain. And one of the key reasons around that is because if you look at global politics, we cannot rely on other countries to feed people, and we cannot rely on other countries to manage our supply chains. That is the idiocy of 1980s, 1990s Washington think. It doesn't work. You just can't import everything and just say that's going to be good, because two things happen. Number one, the wealth production factor of manufacturing and growing is now in another country. Now, how does that help our people? How does that help American citizens? It doesn't. The second piece of that is that now you're subject to the whims and desires of other nations. So we are committed to making sure that ag remains a major part of our state. Kat Kamick, let me be clear on this. I'm not an ag guy. I'm a finance guy. Kat Kamick, who represents Alachua County in Florida District 3, She sits on the agriculture committee now. When I have questions on agriculture, I go see her. Because these are the policies that she has been steeped in. And in the Florida Congressional delegation, what we always do is we have subject matter experts on key policies around Washington. I'm the subject matter expert in financial services, so when we have those questions, the members come see me. When we have that questions, I go see Kat. Kat is going to be a leader, not just on Capitol Hill, but for Florida when it comes to agriculture in our state. The legislature is going through their ag bill right now. I know there's this thing about how you can't criticize certain things. I'm not sure where that language came from, but even the legislature right now, what they're trying to do is make sure that we have a durable agriculture community in Florida. I fully support that. That's important. Now, to the development question, because yes.
Especially AI data centers, I would really like to know if those will be built in Florida and how much
Sure.
they're going to be hurting our islands.
Sure. So two things. One, when it comes to ag lands writ large, let's be part of this. If a rancher decides they want to sell off property, because it's their property, the state can't stop them from doing that. We are a nation steeped and built on personal property rights. Personal property rights and the ability to adjudicate adjudicate whatever charge is leveled against you in a fair court of law in front of a jury of your peers. And free speech and personal liberties. That's the foundation of our country. So if a rancher decides they're going to sell, there's not something, we can't stop them. What we can do is make sure that whatever economic policies we have to help farmers be able to make ends meet and go from season to season, that's how we help. Data centers. My position on data centers is clear. You cannot raise the per kilowatt hour on Floridians. And we have to make sure that you're not damaging our environment and not damaging our water. Now, let's talk about the reality of data centers. Right now, under federal law, data centers do have the ability to do power generation on site, where they're actually not taking from the grid. The new designs in data centers and even the future designs that are coming online because the chips are becoming more efficient, their view is that it'll take less power on par for a data center. I think that they should be generating their power on site. This is why I support microreactors and small modular nuclear reactors, because you could actually deploy that on site with the data center, not taking power off the grid from Floridians. Number two, setbacks. I think that if you're going to build a data center, it has to be set back far enough from the next person's ranch or the next person's home. You don't want to have happen here what happened in Northern Virginia, where you basically had a data center be like right across from somebody's front door. Like, that's crazy. And in Florida, if we actually have a plan and a strategy for this, we can do those things. I'm gonna be blunt. I'm not anti-data center. I'm pro having a plan. And this is the part of politics where I guess the word now is performative. A lot of people like to be performative these days. It's actually interesting watching it. Have a strategy. Data centers are going to be a function of American life going forward. The reason why is because all of you have these things. And every time you swipe, every time you look, every time you stream on Netflix, every time you researching something, every time you ask Grok, every time you ask ChatGPT, it does not happen in the cloud. It happens in a data center. Fair? I mean, I just want to make sure everybody understands what we're really talking about here. The social media stuff sounds cool. It's not reality. The reality is the future of our economy, a lot of it is going to be based upon service. Because we are consuming more data, we are leveraging more data, we're going through more data. I mean, I'm here at FGCU. I don't want to say who's actually used AI for a class project in here. I don't want to say who's done that, but the truth of the matter is the more you use technology, the more server space that you're going to need. The more server space that you're going to need, the more racks that you're going to have to figure out. In Florida, the question is, are we going to do that here? Or are we going to warehouse our data in Northern Virginia? Or are we going to warehouse our data in California? Or we're going to warehouse our data in India? Or we're going to warehouse our data in China? You guys tell me. I see your hat, my man. I don't want to warehouse my data in China. I don't trust them. I don't want to warehouse my data in India. I don't want to get into too deep of a foreign policy conversation, but let's be very clear. India has to deal with Russia. They share a border. I don't want my data there. And to be honest, I don't trust the Democrats in Virginia. I don't want my data there. I think when it comes to technology, AI, and everything else, Florida should lead. We use common sense. We know how to do this thing. We should lead, not play cute on social media, not just say no without a plan and a strategy. So that's what I think about data centers writ large. I want to make sure I answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, for the most part, I just want to make
Sure.
sure that a large pivot or pillar of your campaign is focusing on supporting the economic needs of farmers and ranchers, because the past few years they've really been struggling, and you've seen the prices of beef,
Yeah.
and then especially when Trump made that comment about importing Argentine beef, which has since been eradicated. Nonetheless,
I don't-
ranchers are at my forefront.
So to be clear to that last point you made about Argentinian beef, just because it's not tweeted doesn't mean that work's not happening. You can't tweet everything. Because look, part of politics is just working with people. And part of working with people is you gotta give some grace, you gotta sit in a room and actually have a real plan of how you're gonna move forward. Around the beef topic, I got calls from, people who are in that industry. I made calls over to the White House. Said, hey, we gotta look at this. Here's what we're hearing. Like, that's how this stuff really works. And I'm gonna say it again. I get it. A lot of people are looking for attention. It's about actually getting it done for the people that you serve. There's gonna be plenty of time to get attention, don't get me wrong. There's gonna be plenty of time for that. But can you actually deliver and get things done? That's what matters. Where are we going? All right. I don't have the mic, he has the mic, but I want your question. I want to hear your question. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Congressman. I'm actually a Democrat, but I like to hear the other side too. I actually have two questions, if you don't mind me asking them.
Sure, of course.
Number one, similar to what he said, I'd like to hear your position on renewable energy, and the environment is actually one of my top concerns. And also, I'm Jewish. I am very concerned about the heinous rise of anti-Semitism. And I am a Democrat, as I've said, but I think they have not done anything to combat this huge problem. So what we would do across college campuses and in the state to combat anti-Semitism.
Well, the first thing is, when it comes to anti-Semitism, I don't tolerate, just like I don't tolerate bigotry. Like, first of all, if you're anti-Semitic, you're gonna go paint swastikas on somebody's door, or somebody's business, or somebody's car. If you're gonna stop a Jewish student from kind of go to his class and he can get his education, as far as I'm concerned, you're trying to stop a Jewish student, you're trying to stop a black student, like, that's wrong. You're trying to stop a white student, that's wrong. Get educated. Be a part of the fabric of our country. That's what I care about. So I have no patience for this kind of stuff. It's like, and I'm gonna go back to it. I'm gonna go back to the social media stuff, because it's there. We all know it. It's there. There is nothing funny with cosplaying anti-Semitism or bigotry. There's nothing funny about it. People might like follow it on TikTok and get more views and get more comments, but that is social media. That is not the real world. In the real world, half the people that run their mouth would never walk up to you or walk up to me and say what they say to my face. That's why a lot of times I ignore this stuff, because I'm from Brooklyn. So my attitude is, it's not real until you stand right here and you say it to my face. Until then, you a chatty Cathy. Go ahead and run your mouth. You're less than nothing if you do. That's my opinion. Number two, at George Washington University last year when they were doing the encampments, Oversight Committee went there. We went and we were talking to the president of GW. We saw some of the encampments. We were walking up, they had a podium set up over here and the encampment was over there. So we're walking up and the chairman, James Comer, asked me, he goes, Byron, what do you want to do? I go, let's go through the encampment. He goes, what? I go, let's go through the encampment. Capitol Police, they're like, you sure? Yes, we're gonna go through the encampment. So I start walking. And remember, but first of all, ain't nobody gonna stop me. I'm 6'2", 280. You're not getting in front of me. So I start walking. We go through the encampment, and these people in this encampment come out, they got their keffiyehs on their faces and all this crap. And these guys are trying to debate me live. And the first thing I told one of them is, you want to debate me? Take your mask off. Debate me like a man. You want to be a man? Be one. Take your mask off. The funny thing happened when we did this. There were Jewish students on GW's campus who saw us walking through, and they came and joined us in the walk through the encampment. Because when you stand up to bigotry and anti-Semitism, a funny thing happens. The bigots and the anti-Semites flee. We cannot have any tolerance for this. You want to have disagreements about foreign policy and geopolitics? Have your disagreements, that's fine. What we're not going to do is be disrespectful to people, or even, frankly, I don't think it's good to joke and be disrespectful, because then what you're doing is you're signaling it's okay to the people who truly do believe this stuff. I get death threats. I get them. I don't talk about it, but I get them. So when my wife knows that there's a threat, that's how you know this stuff is real. Charlie Kirk is a friend, was a friend. Charlie and I planned college tours all through Florida this year. That was the plan. So I don't take this stuff lightly. There is right and there is wrong. There is moral clarity that has to be established. What is morally correct? Because here's something I know. Half the people on social media who run their mouth would not come here and say that stuff right to your face. They wouldn't do it because they're soft. They're not real. And I think that this is not about a law. This is not about protecting free speech. This is about moral clarity and leadership. Are you going to stand up to ignorance and bigotry and anti-Semitism? My answer is clear. 100% yes. I'm sorry, I got off on that one. What was the other question you had? Oh, the environment.
Yes.
Renewables.
Yes.
When it comes to renewable power, here's my concern. Solar and wind are not green. When you take the life cycle from the mining in Africa to the creation of these panels in factories, to when these panels are disposed of, because they don't last forever. So when they're disposed of, they actually go in landfills, and what they're starting to find out in California is that these minerals seep out of the panels and into the groundwater. They're actually not green. The greenest form of power on the planet is nuclear. The second greenest is natural gas. We could make an argument if hydrogen becomes real and sustainable, that could probably be the greenest overall. I'm not a picker and chooser of energy. I say have a consistent regulatory framework, have a consistent taxing framework, and then let the market decide what's most efficient and what matters in the lives of people. You want to battle affordability, you want to fix affordability, it always begins with energy. If you artificially inflate the cost of energy, you artificially inflate the cost of everything else. So when it comes to renewables, I think that what Washington defined as renewable is actually not consistent baseload power that's going to let people actually live their lives affordably for themselves and for their families. And so what is the point of saying you're going to save the planet in 100 years if you have jettisoned half of America's population into poverty because of energy? That doesn't work. So I think it's nuclear, I think it's nat gas, I think it could be hydrogen, we'll see where that goes. Could there be a place for solar and wind? I guess, but those are the key things that we should be doing. Yes, sir.
Hello, and first I'd like to start by thanking you for being at our university today. It really means a lot to a lot of the FGCU students to take the time out of your busy schedule to do that.
Of course.
For my question, I have, the state of Florida currently has $350 million invested in Israeli bonds that are considered to be higher risk than U.S. Treasury. Would you, as governor, remove our investment in the state of Israel and reinvest that money into the state and people of Florida?
Couple things on this one. Well, let me give you the short answer. The short answer is no, and here's why. Those bonds that were purchased actually pay a higher rate, about 100 basis points more than U.S. Treasuries. So in investments, there's this thing called having a fiduciary responsibility. The fiduciary responsibility is to get the highest rate of return possible without risk to the investment portfolio. I was security licensed for 5 years, 7 and 66. I built a book of business, an investment portfolio here in Southwest Florida. So this is my business. I know what I'm talking about here. The Israeli bond portfolio, as I understand it, yields around 5.25%, 5.25%. U.S. Treasuries don't yield that. They simply don't. Now, these bonds in question are not just Florida bonds writ large. The bonds that everybody's talking about are in our pension fund. So these are actually the asset holdings of our police officers and sheriffs, our firefighters, our teachers. So if you go through the process to say, we are going to divest of these bonds and then get a lower rate of return, you've already breached your fiduciary responsibility. You're telling our firefighters and our firefighters and our police officers and our sheriffs, you're telling them, no, you can't get a higher rate of return on your investment because we know more. Quick question, what investment are you talking about? Invest where, per se?
Well, your opponent, James Fishback, said that he would take the money and he would put it towards newly married couples getting a $10,000 credit towards owning a home.
Oh, the Kamala Harris plan. It's true. That plan is Kamala Harris's plan. Kamala Harris, her campaign strategy in 2024 was she wanted to provide $25,000 in down payment assistance. When I was on the Breakfast Club and they asked me about this, I said, that plan will not work because it will artificially increase the price of housing. And they were like, well, how will that happen? And I said, because of first-time home buyers, because it was for first-time home buyers, that's what she said. That's what she said, and I guess that's what he said. If home sellers know that you now have $25,000 or $10,000, you know what happens to the price? People aren't stupid. In a free market where you can buy and sell based on information, which is what our free market is every single day, when you take an idea like that, you are artificially going to increase the cost of housing. My position on housing is different. I think we have to streamline governmental operations so that you're decreasing the cost of what it takes to actually build a home. National Association of Home Builders came out with a study about a month ago now. They said that about 30 or 35% of building a new home in the United States is government. Permitting, planning, government time. In Florida, it takes probably about 2 years to put a shovel in the ground and build a single family home. My question for you is, are those 2 years free?
No, absolutely not. I'm actually taking real estate development right now.
So all right, my man, so he knows. It's not free. It costs somebody. And so I think what we should be doing as a government is modernizing internal government operations, modernizing permitting and planning departments, so you actually squeeze the governmental costs, and that actually helps to lower the cost of delivering new homes to the market. And when you can deliver new homes to the market at a cheaper cost, a funny thing happens in the rest of the real estate market. Other sellers, people who have existing homes who want to sell, they're going to see that and they'll be like, wait a minute, the cost of that new home is 30% cheaper. Can I sell my house for 30% more? Like, we have to have market discipline. And quite frankly, honesty. The Kamala Harris plan doesn't work. I don't care who advocates for the Kamala Harris plan. It's still the Kamala Harris plan. Doesn't work. So I think overall, if you really want to address housing, we do have to look at efficiencies and how we're building housing. On Capitol Hill, what I'm telling Democrats is we have to look at what it is to procure raw materials for housing. The regulatory burden of procuring raw materials to build housing is crazy. And then we wonder why the costs are up. The question on renewables, a decade ago, Washington had the bright idea that they were going to increase the weatherization and efficiency standards for housing. And I'm not opposed to that, but what it did, it artificially raised the cost of what it is to build housing in the United States. And your generation's having to deal with that. It's not right. So I think from a Florida perspective, we get in the game, we get efficient, we streamline the timelines, we streamline the costs. So when you're out there with your business and you're developing real estate, man, and that's an awesome career, thank you for wanting to do that, and you're developing real estate, you can deliver affordable projects to people. And be frustrated when you have to deal with government who's taking delay after delay after delay and not being serious and being efficient with your time, which costs money, which directs to their pocketbooks, which costs them resources. Is that fair?
Yeah, to finalize the point on the bonds,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
said, so the main point is that the interest rate is high. If there was an alternative bond with a similar or higher interest rate, would you be willing to change the investment?
But that's a question for the investment board. The governor does not have control over the investment board. The investment board is appointed by the governor's office, but they don't have control over that. The investment board are financial professionals who make these decisions every single day. So they're always looking out for the best interest of the pensioners. That's their fiduciary job and responsibility. So I don't think it's about saying, well, you're going to divest out of this set of bonds. It's more about what is in the professional opinion of the people who are making financial decisions on behalf of the pensioners of Florida. If they fund and then redistribute that under the Kamala Harris plan. We don't do that in Florida. That's the reason we're not California. That's the reason we're not New York. That's the reason that this place is way better than Washington. We don't do that stuff. And so I think if you're going to talk about the divestment piece, to be blunt, I think that's just talking points to get attention. It's not real. It's not real. Yeah. Yeah. I think they're going to run the mic, or maybe they're not. It's okay. Oh, it's over here. Sorry, I'm going to come to you next. Yes, sir.
You said you don't think that, anti-Semites are that real. I don't know if that's what you meant, but you see it's obviously real outside here. Are you willing to condemn James Fishback's anti-Semitism and racism against you?
It's a good question. I'm not in the condemning business. I never have been. I'm a free speech absolutist. If you want to be an asshat, you're allowed to be. It's true. If you want to be ignorant, you're allowed to be. I will protect your rights to be ignorant as much as I don't like it. That's the very essence of constitutionalism. I think to the point where I'm saying about anti-Semites, are there anti-Semites? 100%. There are. I'm not saying it's not real, just like there are bigots, just like there are racists. They exist. I think in part what you're seeing on social media is people are trying to play into that for attention and for clicks. And that's what you're seeing on social media. And I mean, look, take advice from a guy who literally has been in your shoes. I've been in college on my way to graduate, trying to figure out how this whole thing works. I graduated college. For the first 6 months after graduation, I was still working at Cracker Barrel in Tallahassee, trying to figure out how this thing works. I moved down here, met my wife. Well, we already met, but I moved down here. I was working at Cracker Barrel here, exit 101, before you make the turn to the Glades. I mean, before you turn to Fort Lauderdale going through the Glades. On the weekends, I was moving furniture on Sanibel Island to make ends meet. I think people sometimes look at and that kind of stuff. But let's be clear. The reason why these ICE agents are having to wear masks is to protect their families. Because you have these insane organized protesters by George Soros and the like, who their sole goal is to inflame situations, destabilize areas, take pictures of these officers who are doing their job under federal law, and indoctrinating their families and intimidating their kids to stop them from doing their job. It's sick. And my position on this is clear. Do not negotiate crazy. You cannot negotiate with the Democrats on this, so don't. That's my position. And let them have to explain to the American people why FEMA is shut down in the middle of a frost that came through Florida, which killed probably half our crops in our state. Have the Democrats explain that one. I'm waiting for Debbie Wasserman Schultz to explain that to me. Or Chuck Schumer, or anybody else. We don't have Democrat senators, so can't really ask them. Ashley and Rick are with us. But I think that's the problem. How close we are to solving it, it's not clear, because the Democrats find themselves in a catch-22. They've been playing to their political base for so long with crazy, they don't know how to get out of it and have real solutions. And here's the truth of the matter. The American people, even today, support deportations of illegal aliens. The American people support it. They supported it in 2024, they support it today. There are two obstacles with, I think, where some people are saying, well, where are all the deportations? Tom Homan got the money last August to start this. That was 6 months ago. If you are going to set up a logistical system to deport 5 million illegal aliens, let alone 10, it takes longer than 6 months. So this goes back to the social media stuff. The people online who were saying, oh my gosh, they're not doing enough, those are the same people who aren't doing anything except running their mouth. The truth is the administration is actually standing up the efforts necessary to do what President Trump promised the American people. I was at the potential ICE facility in Orlando. It's about 150,000 square feet of space. You need that space when you're having to actually deport people and repatriate them to their home countries. You just can't throw them in the back of a van and take them to, it's not how this works. And so, I think, as an elected official, I know how both sides feel about this stuff. I'm not talking about the Democrats, how they feel is nuts. I'm talking about our activists who want things done and what it is through a system of government. And through a system of government, it has to be sound. It has to be disciplined. And it has to be consistent. And that takes time to build. I wish it weren't so, but it is. You can destroy anything in 5 seconds. To build something takes time. Right, my builder? And so, these are the things that we got to remember as we go through this process. But in short, I'm not sure when the shutdown is going to end. The Democrats are trying to figure out if they can win politically on this. But something tells me when flights start getting delayed and canceled because people can't get through TSA, and the border is not secure because our border agents aren't being paid, and fentanyl overdoses are up, and FEMA can't help Florida farmers, I think that tune's going to change. All right, last question. I said I was going to go quick, but you got me on that one. I got a little excited. Sorry.
Thank you. You said as governor that you would investigate Jeffrey Epstein's many crimes here in Florida. My question is that you're a member of Congress now, so why not start now? Right now, we have a lot of people in government who have hindered the transparency on the Epstein files that have been released. For example, Howard Lutnick was caught lying about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Would you be willing to call for his resignation? Pam Bondi violated the Epstein Transparency Act, which said that she had to unredact the names of people who were co-conspirators, and she was already redacting Wexner's name. And Kash Patel perjured himself in a sworn testimony to Congress, saying that Epstein had no evidence of trafficking women to individuals, but we know that's not true. So would you plan to call for their impeachment as well, along with Howard Lutnick's resignation?
No. And let me be very clear as to why. I wanted the Epstein files released. I did not sign the discharge because I think signing discharges is not the way you go about this business, but I wanted them released. When the vote came to the floor, I voted for them to be released. Here's the other thing I'm not into. In the United States of America, we do not do justice by the mob or by social media or by commentary. We do justice, and criminal justice in particular, by investigative procedure. I cannot speak to what other attorney generals or Pam Bondi have done with respect to investigating these individuals. In Florida, if there's probable cause, we will investigate those individuals, but there has to be a deliberate criminal justice investigation and indictment strategy, and then potentially conviction. You cannot, and all right, I'm 47, you're like, this dude sounds old. But let's be real. We don't do justice by social media. Remember I talked about the law, Frederick Bastiat, 1850 France? That's what they did, and it destroyed their country. I do not support pedophiles. I want them all to be held accountable to the highest extent of the law, but it has to be by the law, not by the whims of men. The foundation of our country, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment in particular, the very basis of the constitutional republic is to ensure fair access to criminal justice proceedings. Because the Magna Carta was written and fought over because the king decided to leverage justice at his whim, regardless of evidence, regardless of a jury trial. That's what Magna Carta was. The framers of our nation, they read Magna Carta. They read the Grand Remonstrances. They had observed the abuse of liberty for centuries in Europe. And so when they came here to this land and they formed a constitution, the purpose of that constitution is to make sure that everybody has their day in court. When it comes to people wanting to resign or whatever, again, like I said, I'm not in the denouncing business. I don't do that. People's opinions of anybody else, let the court of public opinion have that. But when it comes to the criminal justice system, we are not going to have a system of trial by social media. We're not going to do it because it's not consistent. Here's why this is most important. I don't know you, but you seem like a nice gentleman. You have a nice t-shirt on. The purpose of having a stabilized system of justice is to protect you too. I don't know if anybody remembers this time period in American history. You guys probably remember. I think you're old enough now. The Me Too era. Oh yeah, this guy, shoo. Was that justice? And I'm not protecting people who are sexualizing women, intimidating women, because I think that's filthy, disgusting, and wrong. But we have a system of justice for a reason. And the hardest thing in a nation like ours is to resist the urge to fight for the purge. That is the harder thing to do. But that's what restraint means. Our system of justice and our system of government is supposed to be stable and even-handed. It is not supposed to move at the whims of the algorithm. It's not designed to do that. And I will tell you unapologetically, if that's where we go, America will not last another 250 years. And if America doesn't last, watch out. Because you think the Chinese care about Jeffrey Epstein? Because let's be 100% crystal clear. We have two real enemies on the face of this planet, and that is the Chinese Communist Party, and that is the Muslim Brotherhood and radical Sharia. They do not care about women's rights. They do not care about your dreams and your aspirations and your ability to own property. They want to dominate the world. That's what they want to do. And I personally believe we have front groups in the United States who are funding all this nonsense on social media. Why? Because the number one way to attack America is not from outside. Our military is too strong, too tough, and too good. The way you destabilize America is you have their people destabilize it from inside. That's how you destabilize America. And I 100% believe we have psyops going on in social media to decentralize America's internal political fabric. Because if we're running around fighting this one, fighting that one, fighting this one, you're wrong, we gotta fire you, you gotta be strung up, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you cannot have a cohesive political environment. If you can't have a cohesive political environment, your economy begins to destabilize. If your economy begins to destabilize, then you have chaos in your streets. If you have chaos in your streets, this whole thing is over. And that's what our adversaries know. So as Americans, I want justice for every survivor. I do. But it has to be justice. It can't be emotional flailing. It has to be justice. So to your core question, should there be investigations? 100% I believe that. I'm on the oversight committee. We are doing some of that work right now. We're bringing Bill and Hillary in next week to question them under oath. There should be these things that go on. We're doing it. But it's especially for you young guys and ladies, especially for you. There is a deliberate process to justice. And I don't care what anybody on social media says about it. There is a consistent process for this. It is deliberating. And that is to protect every American citizen, whether you're guilty as hell or you're innocent. And in our system of law, you are innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around. If we can't keep that standard, because the algorithm tells us to, to quote your hat over there, that is not America first. It's not. This was fun. Seriously. Really appreciate you guys coming in, taking the time to be here. Politics is a funny business. I've seen enough. All I'll tell you is, in the close, you want a consistent society based on common sense and sound policy. That may sound boring sometimes, but that's the thing that gives you the freedom to build your life and to build your dream and to have your kids and to have your property and to really do something phenomenal in your lifetime. So I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you letting me come. And if you had class right now, trust me, this was way better than class. See you guys. Oh, we'll do pictures up here if you want to do pictures.
You're gonna have a group picture first, and then